Google Sheets makes it easy to share spreadsheets and collaborate with others, but you might still have a lot of Excel files with VBA macros. The Macro Converter add-on gives you the development resources to help make it easier when converting those macros to Google Sheets and AppScript. In the last demo, we uploaded a single file with 100% compatibility. Of course, we're probably not always going to have perfectly compatible macros. So, let's take a look at what happens when we have a more complex conversion and the steps we need to take to fix it. Let's use a regional sales file that's similar to the last demo, but this time it doesn't have as much information itself. This macro actually pulls the sales data from other local files and then inserts the data into the aggregated spreadsheet. This is definitely a more complicated macro, so let's take it to the Macro Converter add-on and get started. In Google Drive, we have our sales aggregate spreadsheet as well as the data folder with the other spreadsheets that get imported by the macro. Now, we'll open up the Macro Converter add-on, but this time, let's include the aggregate spreadsheet along with the data folder. With all that set, let's start by getting an idea of what the conversion will look like. After the Macro Converter is all done analyzing, the details are contained in this report. We can see that 3 files were analyzed this time, the aggregate file and the 2 data files, but only one had any scripts. Moving over to the Compatibility tab, the same files are listed. While the data files have no code, the aggregate file has scripting. It's only 90% supported, so we'll need to do some manual work. These columns show that 11 of the APIs are supported, and 1 has a known workaround. In the Detailed Analysis tab, we can get more information about each API. The aggregated file is the only one that shows up here, since it's the only one with a macro. Let's choose that file and then choose Supported with Workarounds to see the APIs that need attention. In this case, the issue is the workbooks.open API, which is used to load in the other data files. This detailed analysis also tells us which lines from the original macro use this API and the suggested equivalent APIs. Plus, we get some comments that detail out what steps we need to implement the workaround. To get things started, let's head back to the Macro Converter and start the conversion. Once that's done, the output folder will contain the converted spreadsheets. Jumping into the aggregate folder, there's also a README file with some additional information. There won't always be a README file, since it depends on the level of compatibility. There's one API that needs updating, and the README shows the details for which lines will need to be updated. Before we change any code, let's see what would happen if we ran the script anyway. After granting the permission for the script to run, an error window comes up with more details on what happened. Looks like it's trying to load an Excel file from a local file system, which won't work since this sheet is now in Google Drive. We can also see that this error was in unimplemented constructs. Knowing the error is one thing, but the next step is to implement the workaround. Let's head to the script editor and load up the module code that was mentioned in the error. The code also includes some comments to suggest how to correct for the error. Since we've already converted the data files into Google Sheets, this function just needs to return the correct spreadsheet ID. Since this aggregate report only pulls in 2 files, we can just update the code to return the Google Sheets IDs based on the name of the file being loaded. If you're looking for the ID of a sheet, you can grab it from that sheet's URL. Taking a look at the macro code, it's calling the same function that we just updated. So, with the simple logic update, the script can import the correct Google Sheets file. With the code updated, let's head back to the aggregate report and try that Get Data button again. After a few seconds, the correct data gets pulled in, just like if it was run on the local file system. The aggregate sales data files and macro were successfully converted with a bit of manual effort. Thanks to the detailed analysis report and the suggestions in the README, we had some help in converting the files. Some conversions might take more manual effort than others. For more information, click the Help button on the Macro Converter.